Okay, now at the end of the last chapter, we saw basically the last challenge to David's throne was put down. You might remember there was Sheba, the son of Bichri. He got killed. Joab and the army, they returned back to Jerusalem. And just to give you a heads up, I don't think, in fact, we're not going to get through the whole chapter tonight. Basically, there's a bit too much stuff to get through, so we'll just, don't worry if you think, hey, we're going through the sermon and all of a sudden it's like, look, what's the time? And we're barely getting through, but that's okay. It's going to take more than one session, but it's okay. But so far, what we've actually seen going through the events in David's life, it's basically been going through the events in his life, and it's been going in chronological order. Okay, but that's no longer the case. So from chapter 21, 22, 23 and 24, so for the rest of 2 Samuel, it's no longer in the same chronological order that we've seen. We've seen all these various events that happened in David's life. But now, these other things you're going to see are actually things that are, it's almost like they're sort of tacked on to the end of 2 Samuel. I mean, you might notice that it says there in verse number 1, it says, then there was a famine in the days of David 3 years. So notice it says, in the days of David. So it's just saying, when David was king, the events of this chapter, that's when it happened. If you look at chapter number 22, it says, and David, verse number 1, chapter 22, verse 1 says, and David spake unto the Lord the words of the song in the day that the Lord had delivered him out of the hand of all his enemies and out of the hand of Saul. So in other words, it's saying that, look, David delivered the psalm. He spoke the psalm, but when did he do it? When he was delivered out of the hand of Saul. Look at chapter number 23. Chapter number 23 and verse number 1. Chapter number 23 and verse number 1, it says, now these be the last words of David. David the son of Jesse said, and the man who was raised on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said, the Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. So here we have recorded, at the start of chapter number 23, the last words of David. But, if you turn over to chapter number 24, and again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, go number Israel and Judah. And you read through the chapter and find what happened in this particular instance, and you find David talking. So, but hang on, I thought these were his last words. Because obviously, chapter 24 is talking about something that happened before David's last words. Does that sort of make sense? And so we see that for all of these last 4 chapters in the book of 2 Samuel. It's kind of like, I don't know, if you get maybe like a DVD or something, and you see the DVD, and then you get the extra bits, wow, you sort of think, wow, it'd be good if they were put in, but sometimes they're not put in because they don't want to interrupt the flow of the story and stuff like that. So basically that's what you've got in this situation. You've got these things that we're going to look at, and that's what we're going to jump into, chapter number 21, but just realise this is not happening straight after the events that we've seen in chapter number 20, okay? This is at a different time. So look at verse number 1. 2 Samuel 21, verse number 1, it says, then there was a famine in the days of David 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, it is for Saul and for his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. So it says, once again, in the days of David, and it says, notice it says, year after year. There was a famine in the days of David, 3 years, year after year. So imagine that. I mean, I don't know, I mentioned before about sort of, feeling a bit sort of stir crazy. I mean, being locked down for week after week after week, modified house arrest, basically. But, I mean, it's kind of nothing to what we've experienced here. But imagine if the lockdown went on, not just for weeks, but months, and then imagine if it went on for year after year. But then again, imagine if it wasn't just being under house arrest, but imagine if it was being in famine. You're starving. You're having to scrape around for anything to eat. In other words, being in that sort of situation, and it went on for year after year after year. Now, what was the reason for this famine? What was the reason for the famine? According to the Bible, it says, David inquired of the Lord. So that's a good idea. You want to ask God, why am I going through this? Why is this problem? Because sometimes people see bad things happen, and they just jump to conclusions. They see a bad thing happen, say, oh, wow, this must be, if someone has a bad thing happen in their life, obviously because of sin in their life, or maybe someone has good things happening in their life. Oh, they're pleasing God, must be. But no, we don't always know that that's the case. And we see here, what does David do? David inquired of the Lord. David asked God. And the Lord answered, it is for Saul and for his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. So here we see here, the reason for that, and we'll come back later about the whole, it talks about Saul and his bloody house. The reason for the famine was because of what had been done to the Gibeonites. You might say, well, why would the whole land be punished? Why would the whole land be punished for something that Saul did and his house did? Well, for starters, Saul is the king. But also we need to realise that when people shed innocent blood, when people kill people who shouldn't be killed, then there has to be a payment for that. Look, if you would, look at Numbers, chapter number 35. Keep your place in 2 Samuel 21. Look at Numbers, chapter number 35. Numbers, chapter number 35. And this goes through a whole list, basically saying about how you're not supposed to kill people. It gives a list of all these different things. The murderer says, if he smite him with an instrument of iron, verse number 16, so he die, he is a murderer, the murderer shall surely be put to death. And if he smite him with throwing a stone, with him may die, and he die, he is a murderer, the murderer shall surely be put to death. If he smite him with a hand weapon of wood, wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer, the murderer shall surely be put to death. And it goes through talking about how, guess what? If you murder someone, you need to be put to death. That's what God's judgment says. But if you go through to the end of the chapter, and it goes and describes, and it says, whoso killeth any person, verse 30, the murderer shall surely be put to death by the mouth of witnesses, but one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Moreover, you shall take no satisfaction for the life of murder. So in other words, it's saying, you're not going to take payment. This person's committed murder, you're not going to, I'll accept no payment. So instead of him being killed, we'll just accept this payment instead. He says, no, you shall take no satisfaction for the life of murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely put to death. And you should take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in that land until the death of the priest. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood, it says, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed by the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. So notice what God says. He says, look, when someone has shed blood, that has actually defiled the land. It's defiled the land, and the land can't be delivered except by the blood of that person who was guilty. Okay? And so, understand, killing people who don't deserve to be killed, that is a very serious offence. I mean, you can go right back to the thing about the first murder, right back in Genesis chapter number 4. It says, God said to Cain, he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. So notice, there's a consequence. You can't just shed innocent blood and nothing happens. It says the land itself is actually crying out about that. Now turn back to 2 Samuel 21. Look at verse number 2. You see it says, Saul and his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites, and the king, verse number 2, and the king, this is David, called the Gibeonites and said unto them, and it says in brackets, now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites, and the children of Israel had sworn unto them, and Saul sought to slay them in his zeal to the children of Israel and Judah. So here's the thing, the Gibeonites were not Israelites. They were people that were living in the land, but they were people that were living in the land beforehand. They were from the Amorites. Remember, you had the Amorites, you had all these various Canaanites from different tribes and groups that were intermingled, and they were all there in the land. This is who these people were, the Gibeonites. Okay? And these were people who the Israelites originally, they were commanded to destroy. God had said, go in and wipe them out. All the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, all these people, they were supposed to be destroyed. But, turn back to Joshua chapter number 9, and see what happened. Look back at Joshua chapter number 9. Joshua chapter number 9. So it's an interesting account. You want to understand what's going on here. You want to understand the context of who these people were. Why did Saul think it was a good thing to kill them? Why did he do that? Okay, look back at Joshua chapter number 9. Joshua chapter number 9. And so this is when Joshua was leading the people into the land. Okay? Remember, God had given them this land, but they had to go in and take the land that was given to them. And they had to fight battles, and they fought against various places. I think of Jericho. Remember, they went around the walls seven times, 7 days, and on the final one they did it 7 times. They blew the trumpet, and the walls fell down. The Jericho, there was Ai, and that was one where they actually lost that battle because there was sin in the camp, and they ended up, it took them multiple battles, and lots of people died before eventually they defeated Ai. But then look at chapter number 9. Chapter number 9, it says, and it came to pass, when all the kings which are on this side Jordan, in the hills and the valleys, and all the coasts of the great sea, over against Lebanon, the Hittite, and the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite, heard thereof, that they gathered themselves together to fight with Joshua and with Israel with one accord. And when the inhabitants of Gibeon, so remember, we're talking about the Gibeonites in 2 Samuel 21, when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done unto Jericho and to Ai, they did work wilily. That wilily means they were sneaky. You might remember like Wile E. Coyote. He's sneaky. He's always trying to lay traps for roadrunners, but it always backfires on them. Okay, but that's what these people are doing. They work wildly. They're being tricky, and they went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks upon their asses, and wine bottles old and rent and bound up, and old shoes and clouted upon their feet, and old garments upon them, and all the bread of their provision was dry and mouldy. And they went to Joshua unto the camp at Gilgal, and said unto him and to the men of Israel, We be come from a far country. Now therefore make ye a league with us. So notice what they do. They pretend to have come a long way. Now, they're not far away. They're actually not very far. What they do is they dress up, and they even get mouldy bread. It's like, we've been travelling for a long, long, long way to come and to meet you guys. Make a league with us. Because, of course, the Israelites have been told that the inhabitants of the land, they're supposed to be destroyed. They're supposed to be wiped out. And so they pretend, we're not from here. We're from somewhere else. Come and make a league with us, they said. And the men of Israel said unto the Hivites, Peradventure, or perhaps, ye dwell among us, and how shall we make a league with you? And they said unto Joshua, We are thy servants. And Joshua said unto them, Who are ye? And from whence come ye? And they said unto him, From a very far country thy servants are come. So in other words, we're not from Canaan, we're from a long way away. It says, Are thy servants come because of the name of the Lord thy God? For we have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were beyond Jordan, to Sihon king of Heshbon, and Og king of Bashan, which was at Ashtaroth. Wherefore our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spake to us, saying, Take victuals with you, and that is victuals, by the way, it's not victuals, that is, take victuals with you for the journey, and go to meet them, and say unto them, We are your servants, therefore now make ye a league with us. This our bread we took hot for our provision, out of our houses on the day we came forth to go unto you. But now, behold, it is dry and it is mouldy. And these bottles of wine, which we filled, were new. And behold, they be rent. And these our garments and our shoes are become old by reason of the very long journey. So notice, they've got all this, supporting evidence. They're trying to convince the Israelites that we've come from a long, long way. And the men took of their victuals, they took, some of the food they were offering them, and asked not counsel at the mouth of the Lord. Notice the problem. They didn't ask counsel at the mouth of the Lord. They didn't sort of seek, God, where are these people really from? They just believed what they said. Okay, and of course, taking counsel not from God, that's an unwise idea. That's a very unwise idea. They didn't ask counsel at the mouth of the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them, and made a league with them, to let them live. And the princes of the congregation swear unto them. So notice, they swear an oath. They make a promise. They make this agreement with them. And it came to pass at the end of 3 days, after they had made a league with them, that they heard that they were their neighbours, and that they dwelt among them. So they found out that just a few days later, they find out the truth. And the children of Israel journeyed and came unto their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, and Kephirah, and Beeroth, and Kirjath-jearim. And the children of Israel smote them not, because the princes of the congregation had sworn unto them by the Lord God of Israel. And all the congregation murmured against the princes. So what happened? They didn't do what God originally told them to. Why? Because they'd promised. They'd made an agreement. But all the princes said unto all the congregation, We have sworn unto them by the Lord God of Israel. Now therefore we may not touch them. So this wasn't just we'll look up. They made a vow. They swore. They made a promise in the name of God. This will we do to them. We will even let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swear unto them. And the princes said unto them, Let them live, but let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water unto all the congregation, as the princes had promised them. And Joshua called for them, and he spake unto them, saying, Wherefore have ye beguiled us, saying, We are very far from you, when ye dwell among us? Now therefore ye are cursed, and there shall none of you be freed from being bondmen and hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God. And they answered Joshua and said, Because it was certainly told thy servants, how that the Lord thy God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you, therefore we were sore afraid of our lives because of you, and have done this thing. And now behold, we are in thine hand. As it seemeth good and right unto thee, to do unto us, do. And so did he unto them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, that they slew them not. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water, for the congregation, and for the altar of the Lord, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose. And so what we see, because of this promise that was made, they didn't destroy them. They didn't do what God had originally told them to. Why? Because they'd made a promise. And making a promise, making a vow, it's important that you keep your vow. And in fact, we see, if you look at the next chapter, not only did they said, no, we're going to hurt you, we're going to protect you. And so look at the very next chapter, look what happens. Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them, that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. Therefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and unto Piram, king of Jarmuth, and unto Japhiah, king of Lachish, and unto Deber, king of Eglon, saying, Come up unto me, and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it hath made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together, and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to the camp to Gilgal, saying, Slack not thy hand from thy servants. Come up to us quickly and save us. Help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valour. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night, and the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth to Beth-horon, and smote them to Azekah and unto Makkedah. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and were going down to Beth-horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. And there were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him under the camp to Gilgal. So what we see is here we see not only did they didn't destroy them, but they actually protected them. And we can see from this passage that God was actually with them in what they did. Because when they went and defended these people and fought against the enemies, what did God? God sent hailstones from heaven. He destroyed people. So it wasn't that they were doing this thing and it's like they were going against God. They were actually doing what God wanted them to do. Okay? And so what we can see from this is, look, the problem was they didn't ask counsel at God's, they didn't ask for God's counsel before they made the decision. But not only that, we also see that they kept their vow. They kept their promise. They had sworn, they had made an oath, and they kept that. And here's the thing, when you make a promise, when you make a vow, it's important to keep your word. It's very important when you make a vow. In fact, the Bible actually says, you need to be careful before you make a vow. In fact, Jesus, I think in Matthew chapter number 5, look at Matthew chapter number 5. Jesus actually warned about taking a vow. Look at Matthew chapter number 5 and verse number 33. Matthew chapter number 5 and verse number 33. Matthew chapter 5 and verse number 33. Actually, while you're turning there, it says in James 5:12, But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest you fall into condemnation. So notice, James says, brethren, don't swear. Don't swear. Don't swear by heaven, don't swear by the earth, don't swear by God. Look what Jesus says in Matthew chapter number 5 and verse number 33. He says, Again, you've heard that it hath been said by them of old time, Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, neither by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thine head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. And so here we see the importance of not swearing, not making a vow, not making an oath. You might say, well, hang on a second, but surely, don't we have marriage vows? That's still a vow that we have around today. That's true. In fact, if you look in the passage, if you look back at verse number 31, you can't negate that. You can't say, okay, so we can't have any marriage vows, no one's going to get married, because Jesus said don't have any vows, don't swear anything. No, look at verse number 30, verse 31, it says, It hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery. And then he goes on to saying, not swear, okay, not to make vows. So you might say, are marriage vows okay? Yes, they are, clearly. Because Jesus is saying, look, it's okay to be married. And in fact, make sure when you get married, don't get divorced. You know, he says, don't put away your wife saving for the cause of fornication. Now, there are some people who will say that according to the Bible, there is never a grounds for divorce. You ever come across, if you've been in independent Baptist churches, you may have been in churches, you've heard people say, till death do us part, and that's it, period. There is never a ground for divorce. But is that what Jesus actually said? I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication. Saving for the cause of fornication. Okay? So, according to Jesus, there is a justification for divorce, and that justification is fornication. You might say, what is fornication? Well, if you look it up on dictionary.com, dictionary.com says it is voluntary sexual intercourse between two unmarried persons or two persons not married to each other. Okay? So according to dictionary.com, it says if you're unmarried, having sex, that's fornication. But if you're having sex to someone that you're not married to, in other words, mate, you're married to this person and you're having sex with someone else, guess what? According to dictionary.com, that's fornication as well. Now, some people say, no, that's not the case. Well, it's important to see, well, what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? Look, if you were at Revelation chapter number 2. Revelation chapter number 2, because it's important that we base our beliefs on the Bible. Because there is a teaching around within Baptist churches that says you've got sexual sin within marriage is adultery. So someone who's sleeping with someone that's not their husband, not their wife, that's adultery. Whereas people, sleeping around when they're unmarried is fornication. But they say those are two separate things. Okay? Well, let's have a look and see if that lines up with the Bible says. Look at Revelation chapter number 2 and verse number 20. Revelation chapter number 2 and verse number 20. It says, notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee. This is Jesus talking to the churches. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. So what's she doing? Committing fornication. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. So saying this woman Jezebel, what is it? Fornication, adultery. That suggests, that kind of lines up with what dictionary.com says. Okay? Look, if you would, at 1 Corinthians chapter number 5. 1 Corinthians chapter number 5. 1 Corinthians chapter number 5 and verse number 1. And this is the account of where Paul sort of describes there are certain sins that people should be cast out of the church for. And one of the sins that people should be cast out of a church for is the sin of fornication. It's a sin of fornication. And that sin of fornication includes not just unmarried people having sex, but people who commit adultery. Okay? Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse number 1. It says, it is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. Well, what is this? Is this fornication or is this adultery? Because if it's his father's wife, that sounds like adultery. And some people say, well, it was just, his father died, and this is, because this is talking about someone who, it's not the person's mother. It's like if you've got a father, but if she's got a wife and they're not your mother, then obviously the father got married again. He had or maybe he had multiple wives, but it could have been a second wife, something like that. But it says, look, this person is having his father's wife, and it's described as fornication. But if she's the father's wife, that should be adultery. Okay, but no, it's describing it as fornication. So no, but it's his father's wife, because here's the thing: say if the father had died, then that would mean she's no longer the wife. Because remember, marriage is only till death do us part. And that is biblical. That's, the woman is bound to her husband as long as he liveth. Okay, so here we see another example. You could look at Ezekiel chapter number 16. Look at Ezekiel chapter number 16. Ezekiel chapter number 16. And in Ezekiel 16, it sort of goes through, there's a lot of sort of what we describe, maybe poetic type language, where it describes the relationship between God and his people as like a husband and a wife. And look at Ezekiel chapter number 16, verse number 8. It says, now, When I passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee and entered into a covenant with thee, saith the Lord, and thou becamest mine. So this is talking about God marrying Jerusalem, if you like, or marrying Israel, or marrying Judah. That's what it's describing. It's describing how he came into a covenant. He swore, entered into a covenant, and thou becamest mine. And there's many places in the Bible that describe that. For example, in Isaiah chapter number 54, verse 5 says, For thy Maker is thine husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the Lord, the God of the whole earth shall he be called. So notice, thy Maker is thine husband. It's a marriage. It's what's being described there. You're still in Ezekiel 16. And look at verse number 14. Ezekiel 16 and verse number 14. Ezekiel 16 and verse number 14. And it says, And thy renown went forth among the heathen for thy beauty, for it was perfect through my comeliness, which I had put upon thee, saith the Lord God. But thou didst trust in thine own beauty, and placed the harlot because of thy renown, and pourest out thy fornications on everyone that passed by. His it was. But I thought this was someone that God had married. But it says, look, she's pouring out her fornications. Look down at verse number 26. Thou hast also committed fornication with the Egyptians, thy neighbours, greater flesh, and hast increased thy whoredoms to provoke me to anger. Look at verse number 29. Thou hast moreover multiplied thy fornication in the land of Canaan unto Chaldea, yet thou wast not satisfied herewith. Now look down at verse number 31. And that thou buildest thine eminent place in the head of every way, and makest thine high places in every street, and hast not been as an harlot, in that thou scornest hire, but as a wife that committeth adultery, which taketh strangers instead of her husband. They give gifts to all whores, but thou givest thy gifts to all thy lovers, and hirest them, that they may come unto thee on every side for thy whoredom. Now it's true, obviously, that these passages are metaphorical. You know, Jerusalem is not literally a woman that God literally married. Okay? But the picture is still there. The picture is still there of God being married. You know, and we see this throughout the Bible. I mean, look, Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 32 says, Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord. Throughout the Bible, this is what it says. But you see, even though this is a metaphorical thing, this is a picture here, it's still saying, look, this wife is committing fornication and she's committing adultery. And I mean, God's actually saying, look, the adultery that's committed here, he's actually saying when he says you're like a harlot, you're like a prostitute, but he says you're worse than a prostitute. Because at least a prostitute gets paid for what she does. But he's saying you're doing it and you're not even getting paid. You're paying to do it. You know, he says you're worse than a harlot. You're worse than a prostitute. Actually, turn and look at Jeremiah. Because there's another example here. Look at Jeremiah chapter number 3. Jeremiah chapter number 3 and verse number 20. Jeremiah chapter number 3 and verse number 20. Jeremiah chapter number 3 and verse number 20. Jeremiah 3:20 says, Surely as a wife treacherously departeth from her husband, so have ye dealt treacherously with me, O house of Israel, saith the Lord. And go back down to verse number 8. And I saw when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. So notice God saying, look, I was married to Israel. I was married to Judah. And what did they do? They committed adultery. And what did God do? He gave her a bill of divorce. He gave her a bill of divorce. So if God gave her a bill of divorce because of adultery, and Jesus says the only reason for getting divorced is because of fornication, that must mean that adultery and fornication, it's the same thing. And obviously there are forms of fornication that are not adultery. You know, if there's no marriage involved, then it's just fornication. It's not both fornication and adultery. So, yeah, what we've seen in these passages, fornication and adultery, they don't seem to be completely separate. You know? Now some people say, but hang on a second, why does it sometimes say both adultery and fornication? Well, there's many places in the Bible, there's many lists of sins. For example, in 1 Corinthians chapter number 6, where it describes covetousness and idolatry. But the Bible also says that covetousness is idolatry. Okay? So, what we've seen here is God refers to Israel or Jerusalem as a wife that commits adultery and is given a bill of divorce. So what that means is that it must be permissible to give a bill of divorce in the case of adultery. I believe that's what the Bible's teaching. Now, if you don't agree with me, that's okay. Some people don't. Search the scriptures, make up your own mind. Okay? And because if you think that it's a sin, someone whose spouse has committed adultery and divorced them and then get married again, and then those people have to remain single because you believe it's a sin for them to get married, I don't think that's what the Bible's saying. Now, if you think it is, and if you're in that situation and you want to remain single, that's your choice. But I don't think that's something that should be imposed on other people. Because that's not what the Bible itself is actually saying. Okay? That's not what the Bible itself is actually saying. Jesus said there was one justification for divorce, and that was fornication. There's another whole passage you could look at. You could look at the book of Ezra. And in the book of Ezra, you could look there and you could see in Ezra there was this righteous, godly leader. And he actually sanctioned people, lots of people, getting divorced from the Canaanites they had married. And there's no hint that him saying to do that was anything that was wrong. And so, because they'd married Canaanites, and of course the Bible says in Leviticus how the people of the land, they did all these abominations, they did all these wicked things, they were sleeping around and committing all sorts of wicked things. So that would make it permissible. Okay? Anyway, turn back to 2 Samuel. We will get through some more of the chapter, but it's important we see that's a vow, and that is a vow that does hold today. But we need to make sure that we don't go beyond what the Scripture says. Don't go beyond what the Scripture says. Turn back to 2 Samuel, chapter number 21, verse number 3. So see what happens in this case. So Saul, his bloody house, they'd slew the Gibeonites. That's why they'd done it. Basically because they think, we're going to go and do the thing that God had originally told us to do. But there's many examples in the Bible. Remember when God told the people to go into the promised land? Go in, Remember they sent the spies in there, Joshua and Caleb and the other 10 spies. They went in and they spied out the land. Joshua and Caleb came back and said, yeah, we can do it. And the spies said, no, they're big. And people got frightened and they were terrified. They didn't want to do it. And what happened? Because of that, God said, right, don't go in. He said, your children, they're actually going to go in. The people who you said would be prey, they will get to go in and you won't. And then what do the people do? Sorry, we changed our mind. We'll go and do it now. And Moses God said no. But they still went in and they got defeated in battle. So when God has said, okay, don't do that. So originally he had told them to destroy. But once they'd made a vow, once they'd made an oath, it was important for them to keep that oath. Anyway, look at what happens here. Verse number 3. Wherefore David said unto the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? And wherewith shall I make the atonement, that ye may bless the inheritance of the Lord? And the Gibeonites said unto him, we will have no silver nor gold of Saul, nor of his house, neither for us shalt thou kill any man in Israel. And he said, what ye shall say, that will I do for you. And they answered the king, the man that condemned us, and that devised against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the coasts of Israel, let 7 men of his sons be delivered unto us, and we will hang them up unto the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord did choose. And the king said, I will give them. Now you might say, well, hang on, didn't David say, didn't they say, we're not demanding you kill anyone in Israel? That's what they said. And David said, whatever you want, that's what I'm going to do. And then they say, okay, I want these people to be killed. Okay? Because what they're saying is, we're not just wanting to kill random people in Israel. The people that they want to be killed are the people who God described. It says, it is for Saul and his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. The only thing we can conclude from this is, if God's saying, look, Saul and his bloody house, it means people in Saul's house were responsible for killing the Gibeonites. That's the only logical explanation. Okay? And so they're not saying we just want random people to be killed. Yes, Saul, because he was the king, and just take his sons and kill them. No. These people somehow must have been complicit in what was going on. Saul's sons, they were soldiers, and that's the thing that makes logical sense. And that's why David says, okay, I'll do it. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. But the king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bare unto Saul, Ammoni, and Mephibosheth is another person called Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she had brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. Okay, now this is a whole sort of different thing, but this is described. These are who these people are that get put to death. So these things, these children here, these are not Michael's children, because she brought them up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. If you remember back in 1 Samuel 18, remember after David was originally going to marry Saul's oldest daughter, But then what happened? She was given to someone else. She was given to someone else. Because remember, whoever killed Goliath, wasn't it? Whoever killed Goliath, he was supposed to be given he was going to be tax-free, his family would be tax-free, that'd be a great thing. And then also he was going to get the king's daughter in marriage. But instead, what was her name? Merab. Merab, instead, she was actually given to Adriel, the son of Barzillai. That's who she married. So that's who these children were. So maybe she had died, and so that's why Aunt Michael had brought them up instead. That's probably what was likely. But whatever the case, they were people that must have been involved. They must have been part of the bloody house of Saul. And he delivered them to the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them in the hill before the Lord. And they fell all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of harvest, in the first days in the beginning of barley harvest. And Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for her upon the rock, from the beginning of harvest until water dropped upon them out of heaven, and suffered neither the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. And it was told David what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done. And David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from the men of Jabesh Gilead, which had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them when the Philistines had slain Saul in Gilboa. And he brought them up from thence, the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son, and they gathered the bones of them that were hanged, and the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son buried they in the country of Benjamin in Zelah, and the sepulchre of Kish his father, and they performed all that the king commanded. And after that, God was entreated for the land. And so what we see here, we see that basically, in fact, it's interesting, notice how treating the dead with respect. Did you notice that? How they took the bones of Saul, they took the bones of Jonathan, they buried them. That's something that should be done, treating with respect. I mean, today, people are too scared to go near dead. If someone's died, or if someone's sick and dying, people are too scared to have anything to do. You're forbidden from the government. We should be treating people with respect. That's what they did. They treated the dead bodies. Use hygiene. It's a good idea. Wash your hands and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to that. But today, there's just a fear everywhere, and there's no reason for it. There's no reason for it. Okay. But notice also what happened is that it says, and God was entreated for the land. So what that means is the famine was finished. So God was entreated. Originally, because of the sin of Saul and his house, what they had been done to the Gibeonites, that's why there was a famine. They get killed, and guess what? The famine goes away. So that shows that what was done was right. It was actually the right thing that was done. So I suppose one of the key messages we can see in this chapter is that justice does come, but sometimes it takes a long time to come. It comes eventually. According to God, Saul had a bloody house. And the blood that was shed by them, it needed to be avenged. And the reason for the famine in the land, but that was because of what they'd done. And that's what we know it. How? Because God's word says it. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just look at any bad situation that may be happening and attribute it to God's judgment. Because that's a tendency. I mean, some people do that. They'll look at some bad thing that's happening and say, yeah, this is God's judgment. I mean, isn't that what people are saying today? COVID-19, it's God's judgment. Well, here's the thing. Ezekiel, don't need to turn there, but in Ezekiel 13 verse 7, it says, have you not seen a vain vision? Have you not spoken a lying divination? Whereas you say, the Lord saith it, albeit I have not spoken. The Bible warns about false prophets who speak in the name of the Lord. They say, God says this, and God's like, I didn't say that. There's a lot of people that are saying, God did this. And God's like, I didn't do it. Be very careful when you attribute something to God. A lot of people say God did it when he didn't do it. You think about when fire fell from heaven and destroyed Job's cattle and his servants. Did God do that? Was God the one who did that? What about when raiders came and took away his stuff? Was God the one who did that? What about when a great wind came and destroyed the house where his children were, leaving them all dead? Did God do it? Or did the devil do it? The devil did it. It wasn't God at all. So to attribute it to God, that's a false accusation. Now, are there times when the fire of God has fallen from heaven and killed people? Yes, there are. There are times when fire has fallen from heaven upon people and killed them from God. Are there times when God has brought destroying armies to punish people for their wickedness? Yes, definitely. That has happened. But don't go attributing actions to God, any more that aren't his, any more than attributing words to God, which he didn't say. So it's important if you're sure that something's from God, fair enough. But if you think, well, I think it might be, well, then you're best just to keep quiet. Yeah. Best off just to keep quiet. And the second key message I suppose we've seen in here is that the importance of keeping your vows. We shouldn't be in a hurry to make a vow. These people, they quickly made a vow, didn't they? These people just arrived and they gave them the victuals. That seemed to have an influence on them. They gave them, I'm not quite sure, they were keen, they accepted the victuals, but maybe they had some bread that wasn't mouldy or something, I'm not sure. Maybe they had other stuff that kept better, I don't know. But whatever the case, they accept the victuals and we'll make a league. We'll make a league. Don't be in a hurry. Jesus said, you've heard it be said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thine head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. James says, but above all things, my brethren, swear not. Swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. You can end up in condemnation if you're too quick to swear. Too quick to swear an oath. Okay? Now we saw it didn't include, making a marriage vow. Jesus said, it's okay. Being married, that's a good thing. We went through the whole thing. Jesus said, not to divorce your wife except for cause of fornication. But when you do make a vow, when you do make a promise, that is something that you should keep, even if it costs you. You see, because what about if you swear? What about if you promise you get married to a wife, you get married to a husband, and then you're in a situation where, things suck. Maybe you don't get on really well. Maybe someone gets an illness. There are cases where a spouse has got some, illness, to be in a wheelchair or something like that, and it's just like, wasn't what I planned on. Is that an excuse to leave? Is that an excuse to break your vow? No, it's not. It's not. Okay? So it's important, even if it costs you. That's why we should be careful. Think before you make an oath. Think before you swear. Before you get married, make sure, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? Think about it. Don't just be, rushing speedily. Anyway, let's close in prayer. Gracious Lord, we thank you for your word, and Lord, I just pray you'd help us to be people who would keep our vows, who would keep our oaths, but that we wouldn't be hasty to swear an oath. Just let our yea be yea and our nay, nay, lest we fall into condemnation. Lord, please help us also to learn from the examples that we see in the Scriptures. Learn from the examples and to know that justice is going to come. It might not come speedily. Sometimes it can be years later. This was years and years later. I'm sure the people in Saul's house, they thought they'd got away with what they'd done. The bloody act that they'd done in slaying the Gibeonites. Years later. Saul's gone, he's perished in battle. David's the king now. That's all been gone and forgotten. But it wasn't forgotten by God. There was a famine in the land. There was judgment in the land because of what had been done. Help us to realise, Lord, that, what we sow, we will reap. Justice will come, even though it may tarry for a time. We thank you and praise you and love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.